Hello guys, Happy New Year. I hope your year started amazingly. Today I'm going to give my insight into relationship between INFPs and INFJs. INFPs are definitely one of my favorite MBTI types. I really love them, and rarely with any type I have that kind of amazing emotional connection, and really like long lasting, almost unbreakable, I would say, spiritual, if you want, connection as with these people. Unfortunately, I don't have many or as many INFPs in my life as I would love to. My best friend, since forever is INFP. I've been in a relationship with one INFP. I have some friends, from back at the time when I was attending music school who are INFPs. But honestly, no, every single one of these connections was so amazing that I sometimes, also when I go to YouTube and I see like the interactions between types and like friendships, relationships, I don't see many of these couples like INFJ, INFP, and I was trying to understand like why, because for me it's one of the best, honestly, and most compatible interactions. I think the reason lies within like our similarities, honestly, like how similar we are, because when you think about it, we are the only introverted intuitive feelers in MBTI communities, INFJs and INFPs. So I think because we both have this dreamy, kind of reserved nature, we hardly find each other, or if we find each other, it's hard kind of to make the first step, because we're both laid back and rather introverted, and it's usually like when you see it relationships, it's usually like one person who takes a bit like a dominant role of pursuing. But in our case, INFJs, INFPs, and generally like introverted couples, I think it's a bit hard at the beginning, because I think that both types, I'm kind of more expecting another person to give them feedback or do the chase. So I think that's a bit problematic, which is honestly very sad for me, especially for example in this coupling, because I also think like even with introverted like thinkers, there is this a bit like more determination behind it, but with introverted feelers, I think it's the hardest maybe combination to get into, because when you have two sensitive and like dreamy people, it's I think hard to get going. And especially if we are unhealthy, we are both at this like turtle, as I like to call it, mode, where we're very slow, we're taking action, and we don't really do much, we don't really get things done in real life. So that's why I think many relationships don't even happen, because we both kind of make this happen, but in our heads, but in reality it's not happening. So I can't really remember now the name, but I've seen on YouTube this couple, and they're just making like INFJ INFP videos, and they said that it took them like years to get together, because although they liked each other, nobody was like doing the first step. So I think that was really like funny, just to see how at the end they did get together and had like still have like amazing relationships. So it was really funny for me to just see it. But I guess I was very fortunate, because my best friend, for example, we met very young, and the interaction kind of happened very naturally, and from there we've been pretty much over my whole life like best friends. So that was like very fortunate for me. Anyhow, so the first thing I wanted to talk about, which is like usually how I make these compatibility videos or interaction videos, if you want, is that I go through cognitive functions. So for them it's FI, then they have NE, they have SI and TE. So for me, FI is incredible function, because I like it personally, and it's very beautiful to see someone who is so aware of their own feelings and their own emotions. And it kind of makes me also feel at ease, because if you're comfortable with your emotions when dealing with another emotional person, which INFJs are, then you don't you don't get really saturated too easily. And I think that's also the main difference. I think that INFJs are more like absorbing, where INFPs are more like mirroring emotions, because they're so much in control of their own emotions. They know themselves so well. They have the very I can also say like fixed set of moral values that you don't get to overwhelm them with emotions. With us, I feel, because we're pretty much unaware of them. We are more in touch with FE, like with emotions of other people. I think that we can get overwhelmed pretty quickly, and that's sometimes like the potential danger of this relationship. If INFPs are not really balanced, like in general, or just have like a difficult phase, they do tend to be like roller coaster of emotions, and because they don't get overwhelmed with their emotions and they're very comfortable with that, they're supposed that you are as well, which you are most of the time, but sometimes not, you know. So they just get it all out, and sometimes it can be just too much for INFJ. So I think in these situations, it's very important to understand that you will never be able to take so much of emotions like them, because they are still feelers first, and INFJs are intuitives first. So I think that it's important kind of to have limits and to have some fixed boundaries when these phases come, or when, you know, you're just dealing with unhealthy INFPs. I personally never had it in my life, but I do know that I've seen it happen, and I also see many YouTubers talking about that they have gone so, you know, deep and far in the emotions of their INFP friend or partner, and they kind of got lost in that, so that actually damaged the relationship a lot. So I think that's something that's important in this kind of challenges, that you really keep, you know, your boundaries, and that you understand that sometimes it's time for you to withdraw and just to let them process whatever they need to do, and just to, you know, to live through their emotions, which they're very good at. So it's not like you're helping them or like damaging them if you go. I think that most of the time you can still support them from a safe distance, let's say. So then don't feel selfish to kind of want your own space in these situations. So I also have this thing that I've heard that INFPs are very artistic, and they usually are artistic, but I will tell you one thing. So the thing actually that I heard that, okay, INFPs are more artistic and INFJs are more philosophical, but I think it's rather very generalized assumption and like overgeneralized statement. But I do have one theory why INFPs are seen more artistic than INFJs, although they are not necessarily more artistic in the like classical sense. You know, when you see like piece of art, for me, like art is any type of self-expression. Like for me, even doing videos is some kind of art. Of course, like wearing like certain type of makeup or hair, that's also art. It can be also drawing, whatever you want, but it's certain type of or any type of self-expression. I feel that INFJs have actually a very big need. That's a very big part of us, that we have a need to express ourselves because we have FE. But sometimes we bottle up the emotions, and then you see NITI loop and all these unhealthy behaviors which are not good. So definitely expression is an important part. That's something that we can learn from INFPs actually. So INFPs are not so, I won't say good at expressing their emotions. I honestly think the only reason why they're not good is because they don't practice, because it's practice. Why don't they practice? It's because they don't have a need for that. For us, the practice is important, or the act of doing it is important, because we don't have, as I said, this fixed value of system. So our system of value revolves around society, revolves around FE. It's not something that's superficial, you know, it's just the way it is. For us, we do tend to value giving people like positive feeling. We do tend to value more than them like harmony and like, you know, what keeps people happy, what should I give to people for them to feel happy. So it's more about that kind of let's say level of emotionality that we get into. For them, I think it's more about their own emotions, and it's more about how they feel, and they go through world trying to just find people who can adapt to that, or just like shaping the world according to their own values. So then you would say, okay, but INFPs, like, aren't they like perceivers, and like INFJs are judgers? Shouldn't like INFJs be more judgy? No, like, so that's not how functions work. The functions work in a way, like if you have like these four letters, so you have P and J. P is actually perceiver judger. P reflects the character of your first extroverted function. So for them it's NE, which is perceiving. For us is FE, which is judging. So that's why we are like judgers and they're like perceivers. But actually, when you think about the functions, INFPs are more judgmental, let's say. I mean, it's a harsh word, but they're like more judgers than us because their first function is FI, which is judging function. So I don't want to get you scared, but I do think that INFPs secretly are judging in silence people all the time. Like I've seen it all the time according to their values, while INFJs, I think because for us it's really not clear what is that we value. Oftentimes it comes with experience, but that experience needs to be lived, so to say, through SE, through throwing ourselves at these crazy situations, just living life and understanding people more even than us. So we go through life and we gather the data that we can with NI and SE, because NI is like, when you think about it, it's like this isolating island, as I like to think about it. Like it's just like nothing really concrete there. It just wants some material to or create some patterns or to connect it. It's not really a function that, let's say, has a character. I think it's the most abstract and really hard to explain function, but that's how I see it. I see it like a glue, and it's just pattern making. It's not really emotional when you think about it. And often INFJs are seen cold because of our first function, when we are in our autopilot, when we're not expressing ourselves with FE and don't really care too much about the harmony, which, when you think about it, is our first and dominant function and dominant mode. Then we can see people thinking, we are distant or cold, which is, of course, again, not really far from the truth, but also not the whole truth about us. So, so back to the thing with art. So I think that INFJs go through life and rather like gather data and create patterns with NI, and then try to make sense out of it with our TI. So that's a hidden agenda. So it's all about hidden agenda. What is it you like? INFJs want to have certain philosophy. INFPs, on the other hand, already have that philosophy of their life through their emotions, through FI. So they don't really need too much of that feedback from people, which I personally think it's very cool. I mean, it's hard to go through life and not know what you feel. It's not really easy. But anyhow, I think their hidden agenda is based on their cognitive stack is SI, so to create comfort, to be at comfort. So I see some of the like, for example, the artists, the musicians that I have, the friends, I can see very clearly that although, yes, they are creating this art and they are doing something amazing, for them, it's always the question, okay, am I going to be able to live from this? So in a way, it's a normal existential question, but why do I think it's so important and so crucial for INFPs is because of the fear that I really feel in them, excess of this fear of, material existential fear that they're not going to be able to actually survive and thrive from their hobbies or whatever they do, or their job. So I do feel this more in them than, for example, me. My profession is also very different, but I'm just completely sure that if I was at their position, I'm sure that would not, of course, that would be my preoccupation, but that wouldn't be my main preoccupation, which I see with them, especially when they get in a stress. But that's just something that you don't see if you don't really know them on that intimate level. So once you get to know them, you really understand that it makes a huge part of their personality. Just like for us, the first thing you see is these bubbles, in FE, or you see that we are a bit like we shift away with NI and we go in our world, but you don't really see too much of this TI. Only when you get to know us, you understand, okay, there is this certain, systematical, analytical, philosophical side of them that they actually, with years and with experience, it becomes more obvious. Like it becomes like more, when you get more integrated, it becomes a bigger part of who we are. But definitely it's something that I see with them. So they go through life trying to, as I said, shape world in a way they see it, by finding people like their tribe, by finding people who really value them for who they are, which I find amazing. And they're definitely not up to any compromise on that, because they really know who they are and they really know their values, unlike INFJs. So I feel that in that sense, they are much more grounded than us. They really know where they stand with people, with their values, with, you know, society. And that's why for them, for example, it's not a problem if they go, I don't know, just one day and they have a blue hair, for example, they just paint the hair in blue and they're like, okay, this is who I am, this is what I like, take it or leave it. So I feel more this like a bit, you can say artistic, but I think it's more like this lack of fear of expression, because they're so certain in that. So back to the point, like the art is self-expression. If you know yourself, you're able to express yourself better. With INFJs, I think because we are more, I won't say lost, but a bit more undefined. With us, it's more like, you know, going through life and discovering new things, discovering, you know, new countries, new people, and then at some point, hopefully, we get a better sense of who we are, and we get as good with our own emotions as with other people's emotions and understanding of other people. That's like ideal, of course. So then we get to actually express ourselves. So if, by the time it happens, you can already see certain philosophies, different philosophies like gathering in us. So that's why I think you would say, okay, they're more artistic, they're more philosophical, whereas I think they're more like fixed and we are more undefined. So that's the one thing that I want to kind of to clarify. And again, their hidden agenda is to have the comfort zone, to have their friends, to have, you know, stable job and paycheck and stuff. So SI, and our dominant hidden agenda is TI, to have our own philosophy of life, our own understanding of life, then to be able to express. So this self-expression that comes, like true self-expression, you know, of who we are, of our core, comes rather later in life. And I think that's one of the signs for me that INFJ is mature, when you don't see only that superficial, let's say, interaction with people and that superficial expression, because we will always have that, like we will always have these energies of FE, but when you really see this deep expression through writing, through art, like they really are talking about their own emotions and not talking about the world in this detached manner, then I think that's a sign. It's a sign of growth and of mature INFJ. I would say another point that's when we're already talking about emotions is that INFJs have FE trickster. So trickster function, I think it's like the sixth function in our subconscious mind. You know, like you have 4 signs like subconscious, unconscious, super ego and stuff. But I think this trickster function means like that's something that you're really insecure about. And for us, it's FI. It's exactly their first function. So it means that we go through life feeling really, crappy most of the time, and feeling like we lack some basic human worth. Which I think INFPs are pretty quickly to pick up, and they can then either, you know, help us or leave us in this, and they usually help us because they're so cool. And they help us in a way that they give us their own moral compass. And that's something that's amazing, and that's probably the most rewarding thing in this relationship, is that they give us their opinion of us, and because we can see that they're so fixed in this, that they have certain logic behind it, which is also something we value, because we usually use TI logic when making emotional decisions. That's why we value it so much. So we stick to that FI, and they do it like constantly. You know, it's not just one thing. They do this, and they remind us that we are enough. That we can do many stuff. You know, from side we can have many hobbies and stuff, but in the end that we are just by being us, like enough, and that we have certain fixed human, let's say, worth that no one can take away from us, no matter what we do or who likes us, who dislikes us. I think that's something that keeps me very grounded. So that's, I think, the most beneficial part for us. And for them, I think what we can give them, because we are so open to new experiences and we usually go for these experiences, we sometimes come and take them out of their comfort zone and show them like different, you know, emotions that there are and different like moral systems, and they don't necessarily have to, of course, engage in it, and they usually don't because they just don't feel it, but I think definitely it can enrich their own like understanding of the world, and that, if you want to, you know, say philosophical way. So I think that's something little what we can do for them. I would also say, like, in terms of vulnerability, I feel that they are very sensitive. Like, we are both very sensitive, and we both know that from, like, the first moment, I think, of our interaction. Like, there is just this dreamy and, like, very, sensitive vibe about both of these types. But I think it's something that we would never attack each other on, because, in the end, we do want to make people feel good and make people feel at ease. And honestly, with these types, I've always had this feeling that I'm like home, that it's like warmth and certain like just comfort being with them and talking hours and hours about topics. So I definitely think there is this type of like loyalty that goes with that emotionality and goes with that, okay, I would never hurt you, I would never attack you on that. So I think that emotionality and just extreme loyalty you get between these two types is something that bonds us for life. And I also wouldn't say that INFPs are, what I've seen also on YouTube, that they're like extremely sensitive and they're like these, babies, and it's so easy to hurt them. I think it's easy to hurt them if you, let's say, know where to hurt them. But because they don't have this need of expressing their own emotions so much as INFJs, I don't think many people know that. And people who know that are very, very well selected by them, and they would never do that. For INFJs, I feel, okay, maybe we are not so emotional when you think about it, but we can get, in my opinion, hurt more easily, because I know sometimes I had this situation when someone said something and then it really hurt me, or I thought it hurt me, but then this friend of mine told me, but it's not you, the person, like the stuff that she pointed out, that was not you. So why do you identify with that? I was like, I don't know. So that's the thing. You just sometimes can identify with something people said, because again, you don't have this grounded base, and that can hurt you. Well, whereas with INFPs, it never really happens because they're so grounded. So I think that, yes, we're both vulnerable, but I would say with INFJs, you have maybe a bit, let's say, less emotions, but way like brighter ground, like where you can hurt them. With INFJs, it's just really small spectrum, and you need to really know where you're, let's say, pointing out, which you usually don't, because they don't give you enough material for that. So then we have NI and NE. That's another thing. I feel, well, like, for example, with my best friend, like when we talk, I remember us always like jumping from one thing to another, and it's just incredible. And then coming back to this main idea. So I've seen NE work like magics with NI, and that's most fascinating interaction that I talked about it with in this video about ENFPs. So all NFPs and NFJ types have this NI and E, which is just magical for me, because NI is all about depth, and NE is all about multiple ideas and stuff. So I feel that they really have amazing chemistry, like these two functions. And I remember, like, even when I would go and visit her, like where she lives, I would always almost prepare a bit, like read some stuff that I knew we were gonna talk about, so that like I'm intellectually, let's say, prepared. Like that's how far I went, because I would, our interactions were and are like amazing, and we just changed so many topics that I would sometimes feel that I really need to mentally prepare for all this jumping and just switching topics and being on all the time. But it was just amazing. And as I said in video with INFPs, I think it's one of the most amazing interactions, and it's something that really enriches our life, I think, also for us and for them, because we give them a depth of insight and they give us like more insights, and they just throw more ideas at us that can really expand our vision in many stuff. And not to even mention that they have SI, which is all about memory. So they are a bit more sentimental in terms of like going like referencing to past, or if something bad happened, then a bit more, I would say, sentimental in like attaching to the past. I don't think we have that, honestly. Like INFJs, I personally would even wish that I have it more, because I do tend to like just forget some stuff that are important from the past about other people, but mostly about myself. And she is the one actually who reminds me about this stuff. that are, for example, important in this example with someone saying something at me and me accepting as a truth, and then she reminding me from something from the past, which obviously was a sign that I'm not the person she was describing. So, those kind of stuff. So I do think that past should be important, more important for INFJs, but you have that complete lack, that's our last, eighth function. So it's something that we rather neglect, but again, they're the ones who throw these references from the past to remind us of FI, a value that we have. And that's also another interesting thing for the end of this video, when we reference stuff, because intuition always references stuff, right? We reference stuff from the past, or the patterns from the past. They reference stuff from the past to create patterns in the future. But I think that the way they reference the past, it's usually these small moments where they go into many details. For example, I had a cup of coffee, and it was, it was white with some blue paintings on it, and this, reminded me of, I will now say stupid example of a blue sky that we were looking at and stuff like that. So for me, it's almost like a magic, honestly, that they can see the beauty in the moment, in the present moment, when that happened, just for the sake of beauty. So for me, I can see that when I'm referencing the past, it's usually just helped me to synthesize this one idea. It's usually just helps, is the glue for an eye. And it usually, for me, it's not only just for the sake of beauty, it's theoretical, philosophical, something that helps me to synthesize the idea. And I wish I would be able to do that, the stuff she does, but it's usually we come from different places. You can see, she's more about, just the sake of the moment. And for me, it's more okay, I just want to use this fragment of memory, which doesn't really mean too much to me, only to glue it in this big picture that I'm trying to present you. So that's another, let's say that's another thing that I find a bit different, but very nice, complementing each other in terms of just memory and gathering data. So yeah, I think that's more or less it, everything I wanted to say. Comment if you are INFJ or INFP, if you have, these kind of interactions in your life, friendships or relationships. If you maybe want to add something or you want to correct me on something, I'm really open for all of your suggestions and your critiques. Thank you for watching, and wish you a beautiful year, and see you in my next video. Bye.